Hi, everyone. My name is Garrett White. I'm the forum coordinator for Beyond Pesticides. And it is my great pleasure, my great honor here to introduce a community organizer who is born and raised in Tulare County, California. He is a community organizer for the Californians for Pesticide Reform. He is also the founder of Tulare County Coalition Advocating Pesticide Safety. And please, a round of applause. Again, thank you all for coming here. I'm going to introduce you to a man I am very excited to hear him speak. Angel Garcia. Please give him a round of applause as he comes on stage.
Hello. For those of you that are not from California, again, welcome to California. I'm very excited to present the following panel. We're going to be talking about the lived reality of the Central Valley in California's heartland. So quickly, we're going to, these are members of a coalition called Coalition Advocating for Pesticide Safety, or just commonly known as CAPS. It's a coalition based in Tulare County, and it's made up of organizations, community members, community groups, and other folks that just want to be troublemakers in the area. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start with, to my right, or to my left here, with Raul Garcia. So Raul Garcia, let's show him some love. Let's show him some love. So Raul Garcia was born and raised in Porterville, California. He has a degree in industrial maintenance. He's currently the outreach coordinator for the coalition, one of the outreach coordinators for the coalition, and has worked in the dairy industry, conventional dairy industry in Tulare County for around 6 years. So that's the experience he brings. Next we have Lupita, or Guadalupe Gonzalez. Guadalupe Gonzalez was born in Santa Cruz. So she's from Santa Cruz County. So for those of you who are from Santa Cruz, that's your girl. She's a farm worker since the age of 14, and she still works in the farms in Tulare County now. So she's a proud parent, and she's very involved with advocate work around pesticide reform and the pesticide reform movement. Next, we have Trinidad Moreno. So Trinidad Moreno is raised in Lindsay, California. He holds a BA from CSU Stanislaus in graphic design. He is a proud son of farm workers, and he himself is a current farm worker as well. So he still works in the farms. And lastly, but not least, we have Leticia Lopez. For short, she goes by Leti. So she's born in Porterville, California, but was raised in a small community called Woodville. She grew up in a farm working household, and she was, until recently, a farm worker herself. Her experience is a migratory one. So she would, during the summer months, she would migrate with her family to go harvest in Oregon. And that's a reality that a lot of folks still face in some of the communities that we work with. And so first, so I mean, if you guys will note, one of the first things you guys will notice is it's a fairly young group. It's a fairly young group. And that's the beauty of this, because when we're talking about movement building, when we're talking about changing the system and whatnot, it needs to also include the youth. It needs to have young folks at the forefront. So, that said, one of the first questions we definitely I'd like to ask some of these folks here is the following. Given that they're from California Central Valley, I would like for each of them to take an opportunity to kind of illustrate their communities. So that said, folks, starting with you, Raul, can you tell us a little bit about your community?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you for I guess, watching this panel. So I was born and raised in the city of Porterville, California. I lived there just about my entire lifetime, and it's the only city I practically know. Where I live right now, I live in low-income housing and low-income apartments. And I'm surrounded by, all my neighbors are also, the same, around the same income level, regardless of where they work. But like a large majority, including my mother herself, still works in the agricultural industry. She works at a packing house. But just about all the other residents that live there work in picking and stuff like that, or at dairies also. But outside of the apartment complex, I live like towards the center of town, so there's a lot of houses and businesses nearby. But a lot of them are also, people that work in the fields, that work in the packing houses, or that work in the dairies. There are people that have been working there, longer than I've been alive, and that still continue to work there, do that type of work. And that's just about it for really the large majority of the city. The population is mostly Hispanic, and it's about 65,000 people. And even towards the outskirts of town, we've got orange groves and, fields and stuff like that. And, we do have schools on those outskirts of towns that are right next to those fields. So, that's just a little bit of Porterville. It's a nice, growing city. People are pretty nice. And, yeah, that's just about it, to put it simply. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. So Lupita, when I first met Lupita, I was impressed. Lupita like one time she came to one of the coalition meetings, and she was really quiet. She was sitting in the back. She didn't say much, but when she said things, it was just like, wow. One of the first things that she told me was that she was a farm worker and that she had just gotten out of work to come to the meeting, that she was tired. And that kind of blew my mind, being from the area, because that's something that, though it still happens, I personally haven't really had the opportunity and the honor to continue meeting folks that are this young, and still working in the fields. So, Lupita, if you may, tell us about your community.
Well, my community, let me tell you, let me give you a vivid image. Standing on a hilltop, what you see from the east side, looking west, is a lot of agriculture, a lot of orange fields, pomegranate fields, lemon fields. And my community is mainly Latinos. There's a lot of schools there. I believe there's 6 schools in a small town. I'm from Lindsay, or actually, I was raised in Lindsay. And yeah, it's pretty much it. A lot of schools, Latinos, and agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Lupita. And now we have Trinidad Moreno. Trinidad is, he's been a great ally. He's been getting involved with the coalition, and we're putting his special photography skills to use. So, Trinidad, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your community as well.
First of all, I just want to apologize for the hair. I coach my high school soccer team, so we have to dye like it's a tradition. So yeah, but as for thank you. But yeah, as for my community, I live just like Lupita. I live in Lindsay, and but I live in a different area. I live in the outskirts of Lindsay, so I see a completely different view of Lindsay. I'm not in town all the time, so I'm not as close to the community, but I still see it. I'm still going in and out of it. But yeah, I live in the outskirts, and there's a lot of, I'm pretty much surrounded by orange trees. All my, pretty much all my neighbors are Hispanic. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it right now.
Thank you, Trinidad. Letty?
All right, that sounds better. All right, my name's Letty. I was also born in Porterville. I've been raised around the area. I've been residing in the Woodville Farm Labor Center for over 14 years now. The Woodville Farm Labor Center is a low-income housing, specifically for farm workers or people that work in the dairy. So the person that signs on the house, there's about 175 small housing complexes there. I do not want to do the math, but there's at least from 4 to 8 people living per household. Where I live, the person who signs for the house is the person that is saying that they're going to be working in the agricultural fields, or they're going to be working in the dairy, or driving the trucks, the trucks that transport the agricultural produce, right? I've been living there 14 years with my family. I was born into the migrant farm working perspective. My parents, since before I was born, were working the fields from up and down California up to Oregon and Washington. My dad's been doing that since he was 17 years old when he first migrated here to the United States, and right now he's 54. So he's been doing that and still going strong, right? I was born into that. I myself was a migrant farm worker child. I was picking since a young age. That's like what I know, what everybody around me knows. The school I went to also, it was normal for us to go to school, and on the weekends, we don't have like the opportunity to sleep in and like watch cartoons or something on Saturday morning, right? Instead, we're going out and waking up like 4 or 5 in the morning and going out with our parents to go bring some more money home, right? Which at that time, they would give us like maybe $1 to $5, which for us was like a lot of money because, we want to go buy like some chips down the street. Well, actually, no, there's no store down the street from us because we live about 10 miles away outside of Porterville and about 3 miles from the actual town of Woodville. So there's no place for us to actually walk to a store. But there is a guy who has been coming every single day selling chips or raspados, churros, I don't know, all that good stuff that kids like every single afternoon. And he comes and, everybody runs to him, give him the money that we just earned, right? But that's something we were used to as kids, and still now today. The area where I live in is actually surrounded by different kind of agricultural fields. There's on one side we have peaches. Peaches. On another side we have almonds and walnuts, and we have spinach and broccoli. On another side we used to have cotton fields, which recently have been changed into pistachio trees. But that's something that we've lived through, that it's surrounded by us, and everything that happens, we're exposed to it as well. And I had mentioned that I did migrate. So during the summer months, we would travel up to Oregon, into the Dalles, Oregon, and pick cherries. We would harvest the cherries, and that's something that my dad has also been doing since before I was born. So I was taken along, and every single year as well. And my dad's family, like his brothers and their kids and everything, it's still tradition, or it's not necessarily a tradition, but it's something we've gotten accustomed to because everybody can work, from everybody, from the adults and kids. As soon as you turn 12 years old, you're legally allowed to work, and that's what we're taken into, right? So that's a little bit about how I've been raised.
Thank you. So this is the lived reality of some of the folks in the region that we're from. It's something that happens and continues to happen. But what the interesting thing about this is that it's young people that are still living this. It's 2018. And if we're going to be talking about really going organic and that sort of thing, it's really important to also be cognizant of who has access to that and who can who's at that conversation, who's at that table talking about it. It's really important. And there's a lot of brain power in this room, tons. And we also got to, it is my personal opinion that we also got to include, and we have a due diligence to include farm workers at this conversation. And we can't do it. So that's one of the reasons that we decided to bring folks that are living this experience. And the other thing that goes into this is that we have more folks, community members that are part of this coalition. However, given the fact that their work schedules are not flexible, but theirs is, that's why it just happened to be like young folks. But it also helps to illustrate the fact that young folks are also leading this effort. And it's also coming from the frontline communities, and that's what we are. And so quickly, they were mentioning all about agriculture next to their communities. So quickly, I'd like to go ahead and ask the following. 17.6 million pounds of pesticides were used in Tulare County alone in 2015, according to Department of Pesticide Regulations data. What does this mean for your communities? How does this look in your communities? So anyone that wants to go ahead and get to it.
How does it look in my communities? Well, it's a word that I would use is scary, right? I work in the fields 8 to 9 hours a day, and it's not just at work. This is my home. Like, it's around my house, it's around my daughter, and it's really frightening to know the facts given to us today and yesterday. It's fear.
I'll say that the way that looks like to me in my community and from my perspective, given that I've never worked in the fields, I worked in the dairy, but I see what it was like for the parents that were coming home, just covered in pesticides, and not just the parents, but my own mother, too, my sister, and other friends and family members, and my neighbors, kids that I went to school with. That they would go in the summers, they'll go to other states, or they'll go to the fields, and the way that looks like to me is, it's scary. Yeah, like Lupita said, it's like for those people who are surrounded by the fields, for them it's in a sense normalized for them, and for us that are I guess in the city or close to the city, it's just normal to be like, oh, it's okay, you just got something like allergies or asthma, when it's not. It could be something like the pesticides. Now, for me and my work, my experience at the dairy, we wouldn't get, I guess, sprayed on directly, and we weren't too close to the fields. The nearest field to us was an almond field that was about a quarter mile at the most away. Well, California is the #1 supplier of almonds to the world. Chlorpyrifos, for example, is the #1 pesticide sprayed on those almonds. So, especially at night, we'll be out going for a corral or something of cows, and, all of a sudden you feel like a mist, especially like in the summer. You're like, what the heck, it's 80 degrees outside. There's no clouds or anything in the sky. Where is this mist coming from? Well, you look over and just like, oh, okay, that makes sense, they're spraying. Back then, I didn't really know the dangers, and I didn't know, how dangerous and how harmful it was. So, but what I would notice is that, normally it would take like 20, 30 minutes to go get a corral, but while they were spraying, it could take up to almost an hour because the cows themselves didn't like it. They were just agitated by it, and they were more difficult to handle. So, thinking back on it, if even the cattle back then, or to this day, know that it's not good for them, that they don't like it, how is it that a lot of those people in the pesticide industry think that we're gonna be like, oh, maybe it's not bad for us either, when in cattle And if even they know it, how are we not going to know it? But yet they're still telling us that it's safe, it's non-toxic, or, you know, it's okay to be around, you know. So the way that looks like to me is just as an injustice, and I simply see it as inhumane, to put it simply. Thank you.
As I mentioned, my community is, the area where I live in is surrounded by almond trees and walnuts, spinach, broccoli, pistachio trees, peaches, and my parents, and most of the people that live there are farm workers. They work in the grapes, they work in the orange fields, they work in the lemons, the olives, blueberries, cherries, everything. And one word that was used previously was normalized. We've normalized that as farm workers, the pesticide spraying, the spraying that happens sometimes in the fields that we're working in, just minutes before we get the chance to enter. Sometimes it's the field that's being sprayed right next to us where we're working. And unfortunately, we've normalized that. We've seen it as like, oh, okay, they already passed by, and okay, we're able to go in now. But aside from that, besides the fact that we live that while we're working, or we're going through that while we're working, we come home, and as mentioned, remember those trees that are all around the fields that are all around the housing complex that I live in? Their spraying happens there too. So we go to work, come back, and we're either filled with pesticide residue, everything. We come home. Sometimes the ones that have kids, they hurry up and pick up their kids and go to like parent-teacher conferences they have to, or some meeting that they have to go to. Sometimes in the same clothes that they just got out of work from. Their kids are running up to them when they're when they get home. You haven't seen your kid from, Lupita mentioned, 8 to 9 hours. Sometimes it's even more, from sun up to sundown. It's hard labor. Unfortunately, that's what we have to do, right? But our kids are running, the kids are running up to their parents, hugging them and everything. And what are they getting into contact with? With that residue, that same residue that they brought home from work. And at home, we can't just close the doors, close the windows and everything, because there's spraying happening around us as well. Just on Wednesday, actually, when I got home after going to Sacramento, Lupita shared the story to try to ban glyphosate here in the state of California from school campuses. I got home to my siblings, and I opened my car door, and I hear the sprayer that's going on in the walnut fields. And the smell is very strong. I go home, this is like at 11 at night. I go home, or I go into my room, and everyone's asleep, so what do? I just fall asleep too. And we're not just being exposed to it at work, but even in the community where we live in, we're being exposed to it too. And it's, a smell is a form of being exposed to it. Because how can you not smell something? How can it not be a sign of exposure when you're smelling it? You're inhaling it. It's going into your system. And unfortunately, that's something that we've normalized, because sometimes we don't have, our community isn't as informed, or, we don't have that access to, we don't know who to go to, or maybe it's a language barrier too. And unfortunately, that's something that, our community has normalized, and it's something that, as a coalition, we're trying to, get that information out and trying to inform our community that there are options and that there are resources, and that kind of stuff shouldn't be happening, because we shouldn't be exposed to it. There shouldn't be no kind of drift. Drift shouldn't be occurring, besides the fact that some of these pesticides are harmful to begin with.
All right, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know like the statistics and like the names of like pesticides and everything, but I do know it's harmful. And there's been times where I've been working, and right before work, there's like a plane or someone spraying the trees, and as someone that knows that, because my parents, they know kinda, but they kind of don't care, I guess. I mean, they obviously care, but they're just not informed of the actual like symptoms and everything. So there's been times where they spray, and I'm working, and I'm like, my nose is running, my face starts getting itchy, and I'm like, this cannot be safe. And to know that my parents have been doing field work since I was born, it's heartbreaking, because I know in the future, when they start getting older, those effects are gonna be more drastic. And I just don't want something like pesticides to not just only affect my family, but other people, my neighbors, my friends, because most of the people I know work in the fields or do some kind of agriculture, and they're pretty much surrounded by it. I live, like I said earlier, I live around orange trees, and they're always using some sort of pesticide. You could hear it in the morning, later at night, and that kind of stuff goes into my household. And I also see it around schools. All when I coached, I know some of the players had the same experiences as I did, and yeah, I just don't like seeing it in my community, because I know the outcome that can be from the pesticides. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I also wanted to add, the field workers don't take any precautions. We are not told the dangers of working with pesticides, and when we're at work, we don't use goggles or glasses. So obviously the pesticides are on the trees. We have to have our eyes open to be working there. I mean, obviously, right? So the pesticides fall into our eyes, and we don't do anything about it. There isn't really a code or anything to do. Well, we can tell the boss, but you have to go back to work. So we're constantly having pesticides fall into our eyes, and we also have acupuncture therapy. So there's thorns there, right? And the thorns also have pesticides on them. Whenever we are poked with thorns, we just pretty much say ouch. I mean, that's it. It doesn't go any from like further than that, right? But wherever you are punctured, it does burn. I've been punctured a lot of times before. Actually, I feel like I have splinters in my arm still from work. And so I work with Sierra Nevada with Labor Incorporated, and we have been sprayed before. We have worked. After they spray, they have us waiting there, and so we're done with a side of the field, they spray it, and we go back to work. And it was like that for 2 weeks. The workers there were unsure of to work or not. I mean, they need to work. They don't have any other option, right? So we're working there, and they feel nauseous. They don't feel good, but it's a living. It's our living. Thank you.
I want to take this quick opportunity also to kind of recognize and acknowledge that it's not easy for them to come up here and talk to folks about their lived experiences. But after meeting with them individually and as a collective, it was expressed that this has to get out there. You guys have to know about it, and you have to include it and plug it in into the respective research and work that you're doing, and be aware of this is how it plays out in the farm working community in Central California, where, as you guys have noted in various presentations, if we look at Central Valley, California Central Valley, it doesn't get left behind. It's always at the top when it comes to kind of pesticide use or pesticide exposure or some sort of environmental racism or environmental injustice. And the other thing that I also want to acknowledge is that none of this is scripted. This is all coming from the heart. It's a conversation. And so I really encourage each and every one of you to really take this home and really take this home and include it into the respective work that you do. I think it's really important that if we're going to be transformative, we're going to be talking about being transformative and talking about regenerative and sustainable agriculture, I think it needs to start with the people and the people in the land. And so part of this conversation definitely needs to include folks from the frontline communities. Lastly, I want to just take a quick opportunity to ask, for them to share what their vision looks like for the future. I mean, so we kind of quickly got a glimpse of their community in their own words, and then we got a glimpse of what their current situation is and what they go through. But I think it's also important to also have a vision, right? We got to have a vision of where are we going to go with this? How do we envision? And so, I think they have their vision, and I'd like for them to perhaps maybe quickly share some of that. So whomever's wants to go ahead and go first, please.
Okay. Well, I guess when it comes to my vision for the future, I'd have to look a lot at my past and the current situation. My past, worked at the dairy. It was dirty. It was cold. Being out there at 3 in the morning in the winter, you're soaking wet and it's cold, or you're out there at 3 in the afternoon in the middle of summer and it's hot. It's really humid. And, mosquitoes and pesticides and the stench all over the place. To right now, and I guess the past into right now is, I could have just described right now. It's the same. I essentially just did both. But I guess I know this is the way I see it for me personally. Then I can only speak from my perspective. And sorry if my examples are a bit too extreme, but you know what? This is a reality that people are living through every single day, not just in Tulare County, but in other parts of the state of California and in other states, whether it's Utah, Nebraska, or somewhere else in this beautiful country of ours. And like I said, sorry if these examples are a bit too extreme, but I see it this way. If you see someone, getting robbed, what do? You call the police. You call them the emergency, right? If you see someone, that has a gun pointed at them, you call the proper authorities, right? You call the police. If you see someone in danger, you're gonna call the police. You're gonna call, the fire department or the ambulance or something that could help them. But that's because those are, I guess, immediate dangers that are happening in the moment. Well, right now, what we're going through, and not just in Tulare County, but throughout the state and in other parts of the country, we're in danger. We're in immediate danger. And the point is, not really the point is, what it looks like is that no one is calling the police. No one is calling for help. No one is being like, hey, help these guys. Obviously, the person that has the gun pointed at them isn't going to be the one shouting for the police, because if they do, heck, that's the end of it. And I'm sorry if my examples are extreme, but that's what it feels like for us. And we got these giant corporations, these giant industries that are essentially pointing the gun at us. And we can scream for help all we want, but the fact of the matter is, part of it is our skin color, too. And, we're like, hey, we need this. And I'm sorry, like I said, my examples are a bit too extreme, but that's the reality that we live. And unfortunately for some of these people, it's the only reality they know, and it's the only reality they will ever know, is the reality of, constantly calling for help and no one answering the phone. And that's how I see it. That we're right here, we're calling for help, and we're saying this is what we are doing, and we're doing all we can from our end. We could try to call our representatives, but you know what? My representative is Kevin McCarthy. So for those of you guys who know who that is, what kind of help is that? I can't just call my representative, and that's really how I see it. And I guess that's essentially my call to action, is to ask you guys to also call your representatives and your senators from your areas to help us to have them champion this issue on our behalf, because our food, the way I see it when it comes to this pesticide issue, is that in the Central Valley, we grow food that goes all over the world, from Asia, Africa, to Europe, even other parts of the state, including Southern California and New York or Washington or whatever. But, locally, we have this pesticide issue. And you can say, okay, but these oranges that are going to France are being sprayed with this pesticide because they won't accept them. Yeah, but maybe the oranges that are going here are being sprayed with pesticide, and it's being drifted on. So there's that too. So essentially, this is a local issue that has a global impact, has a global effect, because our food goes all over the world. 88% of the world's almonds come from Chlorpyrifos is the #1 pesticide sprayed on those almonds. It's not, like I said, sorry to put it lightly, but sorry for such extreme examples, but that's what it feels like for a lot of our communities. And unfortunately, for some of them, it's the only life that they've ever known, and it's the only life so far that they'll ever will know. They will live and die with that toxic reality, from high birth defects to high neurological developmental disorders like ADHD and autism. I can't put it any more bluntly than that. Unless you guys could also come up to the Central Valley to see for yourselves. Because yes, it looks pretty when you're standing on the hillside and looking at the orange groves, but as you're getting acupuncture therapy, it doesn't feel so pretty now. So that's essentially the crux of it from my perspective. I can't speak for my colleagues, but that's definitely the way I see it.
Is there a So just to follow up quickly on what was mentioned, Raul, so you painted a very raw picture of what goes down or what's going on in the Central Valley. What would be your vision?
Sorry, I didn't answer that part. My vision is that one that not only do we protect our communities from these harmful pesticides, but we develop, more advanced and more sustainable ways of agriculture. I've heard the word agriculture being thrown around a lot, and that's great. But as we discussed, a little bit earlier, and as I mentioned to someone, what about sustainable agriculture? Because whenever you guys say agriculture, I personally feel like a lot of you guys may think of the organic farming that you guys do, which is great. But for us, when we think of the word agriculture, we think of conventional agriculture. We think of fields, orange groves, grapevines, dairy farms, and all that other stuff that to be frank, is killing us. But when it comes to my vision, I feel like the key word is sustainable agriculture. Safe, sustainable, organic agriculture. We have the technology. We're in the state of California. We're #1 in a lot of things, and I believe we could be #1 not just in the United States but in the world to safe, sustainable, green, organic agriculture. And we definitely have technology. We definitely have the resources. It's just I believe that for the future we're going to get that culture shift, and we're going to get it in the Central Valley, but we can't do it alone. And it's going to be a statewide effort that comes not only from us in the Central Valley, but from you guys, outside of the valley and outside of the state. So when it comes to my vision, that's really what it comes down to: safe, sustainable, organic agriculture. I'm not against the agricultural industry at all. I mean, heck, that's how I made a living. That's how most of us, all of us here, made a living at some point, or still do. It's that first part, that part of safe, sustainable, green, and organic, which is more than possible. It's just, it takes a lot of effort. But I believe that I not only believe that we can get it done, I believe we will get it done. And, like Angel says, there's a lot of brain power here. And, I see a lot of the people here that are going to be part of that movement, and changing the culture of not just California, but, possibly even the entire country. And that's, here right now, like, that makes me optimistic, and it makes me happy to see all you guys here. And, yeah.
Thank you, Raul. Thank you. Lupita, can you share with us a vision or your vision?
My vision? Okay, well, my vision starts with informing. So I envision people informing themselves, coming together and finding alternatives. And obviously, I think it all starts with caring, not only for each other, but for the environment. Thank you.
I don't know what to say after that, but but yeah, for me, my vision is like pretty much highlighting the issue and getting help to the people that are being affected, whether it's whatever it is, but something has to be done to help the people who are being affected. So yeah.
I don't know how realistic this will be, but as a farm worker child, as a migrant farm worker child, it is hard to live that reality, especially when you go into high school and your friends are, they've gone on hiking trips, or they've gone to the beach, or they have vacations with their families, something that unfortunately our families can't experience and our youth can't experience. In my vision, I wish, kids don't have to go through that anymore. I wish, me or even, my siblings who are still going through that are able to experience a hike or experience a vacation. Unfortunately, that's not happening. I wish I could see right there in my community, not see the kids have to wake up early in the mornings to go help their parents go to work, where they're being exposed at a young age to the harmful effects of pesticides. It does start with informing, and it's informing not just the people that do the work, but down to the people that work, the people that are out there in the fields. I worked for a while with the UFW Foundation based in Tulare County to help spread that information on not just on what a farm worker has the rights of, where their water breaks, or right to shade, or clean water. But I miss so many people. There's so many people I still didn't get to. There's so many people I didn't inform about the pesticide safety, about the effects that they could have, about how much it's affecting our lives. There's so many people that I still didn't get to, and there's so much work to be done in that area. I hope to be able to reach them and be able to inform them that although, unfortunately, it's a reality that we have to work in the fields, because a lot of our community are immigrants. They're immigrants, and unfortunately, because of their status here in the U.S., they fear that they can't do anything. That, they're just, they're doing this to me, and it's okay, because I don't know what I can do, or I don't know what, if anyone's there to help me. And unfortunately, that's not true. But that's something that, again, we've normalized because we don't know what's out there. And there's not enough people informing them either. So So in my vision, I hope to not see the young kids anymore out in the fields. I hope that, I hope that they can go out and maybe experience a hike or experience a vacation to the beach or something that unfortunately I didn't get to live. And for me, when I went into high school, hearing those stories from my friends, oh yeah, when I was in 8th grade, we went hiking or we went for a week to the mountains or something, I couldn't share that experience. Because that week in spring break, when they were out there in the mountains, I was that whole week out there working in the fields, trying to bring more income into my household, because unfortunately, we can barely make it to pay the bills. And that's something I hope to see that changed. Somebody's gonna have to work those fields still, but I hope it can be done in a more safe environment, in a more safe way, where no one is getting exposed that way, where no one's having to deal with those issues after and when they're older, right? And unfortunately, in this, however many years you've been working, there's no retirement either. So that's something that I hope to be able to see be changed as the years go by.
Yes, thank you, Letty. And again, I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone that was part of this panel. Again, they're all folks and members of the coalition in Tulare County, the coalition advocating for pesticide safety. It's premised on the idea that no one individual, organization, or agency can bring about change. It needs to happen with everyone else's help, and together is how we bring about change, not at the individual level. And so we definitely want to just convey the idea that the validation of the lived experiences is something that gets this coalition going and gets this coalition moving. And we invite, if anyone, to be part of this and to definitely help us elevate even more the voices of farm working folks, such as the youth right here before us.